Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into a story that, while ancient, holds incredible power and relevance for our lives right now. It's a story about tough times, big decisions, and finding hope when everything feels barren. We're starting with a passage from the Bible, from the Book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 1. It begins like this. In the days when the judges ruled, there was famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah went to live for a while in the country of Moab. His name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi. Just take a moment to imagine that scene. In the days when the judges ruled, a time often characterized by instability, by each person doing what was right in their own eyes. Not exactly a golden era, right? And then, to compound the challenges, there was famine in the land. Not just a little shortage, but a widespread, life-threatening famine. The very ground that was supposed to sustain them, the fields of Bethlehem, a name that literally means house of bread. They were barren. Think about that irony. The house of bread had no bread. Can you feel the weight of that? The wind wasn't carrying the sweet scent of ripening grain. It was carrying dust instead of sustenance. Hunger wasn't just an abstract concept. It was a real, gnawing pain pressing on every single home, every family, every child. This wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a full-blown crisis. So what do people do when their world turns upside down, when the very foundations of their life crumble? They look for options. They seek survival. And that's exactly what Elimelech and Naomi did. They made a monumental decision. So they journeyed to Moab. Now Moab wasn't just another village down the road. It was a foreign land, a place far from their cultural and spiritual roots. For them, it was a land far from the covenant, far from the temple of the Lord. It was a place of outsiders, a different culture, different gods, different customs. Imagine leaving everything you know, not just your home, but your community, your traditions, your spiritual anchors, all in search of basic survival. That takes immense courage, desperation, and perhaps a flicker of hope that things could be better elsewhere. This isn't just a dusty old story. It's a timeless human experience. How many of us have faced our own famine in the land? Maybe it wasn't a literal lack of food, but a famine of hope, a famine of opportunity, a famine of peace in our lives. Perhaps it was a job loss, a difficult relationship, a health crisis, or a dream that withered before it could bloom. In those moments, when our Bethlehem feels barren, where do we look? What decisions do we make? Do we stay and starve, metaphorically speaking, or do we journey to Moab, even if it's unfamiliar and a little scary? This story reminds us that life often throws us curveballs. We plan, we work hard, we build, and then suddenly a famine hits, and everything shifts. It forces us to adapt, to reconsider, to sometimes make choices we never imagined we'd have to make. But here's where the profound truth begins to emerge. In these times of crisis, of forced migration, of searching for a new normal, where do we find our anchor? Where do we put our hope? The passage, while detailing a difficult situation, sets the stage for a deeper reflection. Consider the contrast between the desolate fields of Bethlehem and the hope that sustained people through such trials. It brings to mind another powerful verse from Lamentations 3:24, which says, "The Lord is my portion, says my soul, therefore I will hope in him." What a declaration! The Lord is my portion. This isn't just a nice phrase, it's a radical reorientation of perspective. When everything else is stripped away, the harvest, the security, even the familiar comforts of home, what remains? For those who declare this, what remains is the unshakable presence and faithfulness of something greater than themselves. Think about what portion means. It's your inheritance, your share, what sustains you. In a world where physical portions were scarce, claiming "the Lord is my portion" was an act of profound faith and resistance against despair. It means, even if the fields are barren, even if I have to journey to a foreign land, my ultimate sustenance, my ultimate hope, comes from a source that famine cannot touch. This isn't about ignoring the pain or pretending the famine isn't real. Elimelech and Naomi clearly felt the pain and made a practical move. But the underlying spiritual truth, articulated so beautifully in Lamentations, offers a different kind of strength. It's about recognizing that even when our earthly provisions are depleted, there's a spiritual wellspring that can never run dry. This perspective invites us to ask ourselves, what do we consider our portion? Is it our job, our bank account, our relationships, our perfect plans? All these things are wonderful, but like the fields of Bethlehem, they can at times become barren. So, when those things inevitably fluctuate, where do we find our steady ground? Embracing this idea of "the Lord is my portion" offers incredible resilience. It tells us that our deepest security isn't dependent on external circumstances, but on an internal connection, a spiritual foundation. It means that even when we're in our own Moab, an unfamiliar, uncomfortable, or challenging place, we can carry hope with us. This hope isn't naive optimism that everything will be perfect overnight. It's a deep-seated conviction that even in the toughest seasons, there is purpose, there is guidance, and there is a path forward. It's the strength to keep going, to adapt, to seek new solutions, and to believe that something good can emerge even from difficult situations. So, as you navigate your own seasons of famine or journeying to Moab, remember this powerful declaration: "The Lord is my portion, therefore I will hope in him." Let it be a source of comfort and strength. It's a reminder that even when things seem bleak, there is always a source of hope available to us, a portion that can never be taken away. I hope this message resonated with you today. If it did, please hit that like button, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and definitely subscribe to the channel for more content like this. It's a tale that reminds us that even in the darkest valleys, hope can blossom, and true loyalty shines brightest. Our journey begins with a family facing unimaginable difficulty. Picture this: a man named Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion. They lived in Bethlehem, but a severe famine forced them to make a heart-wrenching decision. They left their home, their community, everything they knew, and migrated to a foreign land, Moab, in search of sustenance, a chance to simply survive. Now, imagine the courage that took, leaving behind the familiar for the unknown, all driven by the primal need to feed their family. It's a move many of us can relate to, making tough choices for those we love. They hoped for a new beginning, a fresh start away from the famine's grip. But tragedy, sadly, has a way of following us, even across borders. Just when they thought they might find peace, sorrow struck. First, Elimelech the patriarch passed away in Moab, leaving Naomi a widow in a foreign land. Can you imagine her grief, her isolation, far from her own people? It's a moment that could break anyone. Years passed, and her sons, Mahlon and Chilion, found love and married local women, Orpah and Ruth. For 10 years they built a new life, a semblance of normalcy. But then an even heavier blow fell upon Naomi. After a decade, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. Just like that, Naomi was left utterly bereft, a widow who had now lost both her sons. Suddenly, 3 widows stood among graves in a foreign land: Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth. 3 women, united by loss, each grappling with their own despair. Naomi, weary and completely broken, felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She saw herself as a symbol of misfortune, believing that God's hand was against her. In her deep sorrow, she made a selfless yet painful decision. She turned to her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, and with a voice heavy with grief, she urged them, "Go, return each of you to your mother's house." May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me." Think about that for a moment. Even in her deepest despair, Naomi's heart was still for others. She wanted them to have a chance at happiness, a chance at new life back among their own people. She wasn't thinking of herself, she was thinking of their future. The scene that followed is one of the most poignant in all of ancient scripture. They lifted up their voices and wept. Tears flowed freely, a shared outpouring of sorrow and love. Orpah, after much struggle, kissed Naomi goodbye and, with a heavy heart, turned back to Moab, back to her family, her familiar surroundings. It was a perfectly understandable choice, an act of self-preservation in the face of such overwhelming loss. But Ruth clung to her. She refused to leave. This wasn't just an emotional outburst. It was a profound declaration of loyalty, a commitment that would echo through history. And Ruth said, with unwavering conviction, "Do not urge me to leave you, or to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God." What an incredible statement. In a world where women depended so heavily on male protection and provision, Ruth was choosing a path of uncertainty, of potential hardship, all for the sake of love and devotion to her mother-in-law. She wasn't just promising companionship, she was adopting Naomi's family, her culture, and her God. This wasn't just about sticking with someone, it was about becoming one with them, embracing their future as her own. It's a powerful testament to the bonds we forge and how love and loyalty can truly conquer all. What do you think of Ruth's decision? Have you ever had someone show you such unwavering devotion? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this story inspiring, please give this video a big thumbs up, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe for more uplifting content. Your support means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Have you ever felt like you've lost everything? Like you left a place full of hope, only to return with nothing but emptiness and a heavy heart? It's a feeling that can swallow you whole, a bitterness that can change the very essence of who you are. Today, we're going to talk about a story that starts in that exact place of profound loss, but it doesn't end there. It's a story of how even in our darkest moments, seeds of hope are being planted, often in ways we can't yet see. Imagine a woman named Naomi. Her name means pleasant, and once upon a time, it fit her perfectly. She had a loving husband and 2 wonderful sons. They were a complete family, full of life and promise. But life, as it so often does, took an unexpected turn. Famine forced them to leave their home in Bethlehem, the house of bread, in search of sustenance in a foreign land. They went out full with a future ahead of them. But in that foreign land of Moab, tragedy struck. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. First, Naomi's husband Elimelech died. She was left a widow, but she still had her sons. They married local women, Orpah and Ruth, and for about 10 years they built a life together. There was still a flicker of hope, a semblance of family. But then the unthinkable happened again. Both of her sons died. Naomi was left not just a widow, but a mother who had buried both of her children. The fullness she had once known was now a cavernous void. The pleasantness her name suggested had soured into deep-seated grief. So, Naomi decides to return home to Bethlehem. She has nothing left in Moab. She urges her daughters-in-law to go back to their own families, to find new husbands and new lives. Orpah, with tears and a heavy heart, does as she's told. It's a practical, understandable choice. But Ruth does something extraordinary. She clings to Naomi. She refuses to leave her side, delivering one of the most powerful declarations of loyalty and love in all of literature. "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried." With this unwavering companion by her side, Naomi finally arrives back in Bethlehem. News of her return spreads like wildfire. The town is buzzing. The women who knew her from years ago come out to greet her, their faces a mixture of surprise and curiosity. "Can this be Naomi?" they whisper among themselves. They remember the vibrant, hopeful woman who left. The person standing before them is a shadow of her former self, etched with lines of sorrow and hardship. And Naomi's response is heartbreaking. It's raw, it's real, and it's filled with pain. "Do not call me Naomi," she tells them. "Don't call me pleasant anymore. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." The name Mara means bitter. Naomi is essentially renaming herself based on her suffering. She's claiming her bitterness as her new identity. Can you feel the weight of her words? "I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home again empty." She lays the blame for her emptiness squarely at God's feet. From her perspective, her life is a wreck, and she believes God is the one who has wrecked it. It's a stark, honest cry from a broken heart. How many of us have been there? In a place so dark that we feel abandoned, even punished by the very source we once looked to for comfort and hope. We question everything. We feel that our prayers have gone unanswered, or worse, that our lives have been intentionally dismantled. Naomi's cry is the cry of anyone who has ever felt crushed by the circumstances of life. But here is where the story pivots. Here is where the light begins to pierce the darkness, even if Naomi can't see it yet. The Bible tells us that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Naomi feels utterly alone, but she isn't. She has Ruth, a living, breathing testament to faithfulness and love, standing right beside her. Ruth's presence is a quiet but powerful counter-narrative to Naomi's despair. While Naomi sees only emptiness, Ruth represents a future she cannot yet imagine. And there's another crucial detail, a single line that changes everything. "So they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest." This isn't just a random detail about the time of year. In the world of the Bible, harvest is a time of provision, blessing, and new beginnings. While Naomi is declaring her emptiness, God is literally surrounding her with a season of abundance. While she is focused on what has been taken, God is preparing a harvest of redemption. The very fields that surround Bethlehem are about to become the stage for a divine comeback story. The seeds of this redemption were already planted. They were planted in Ruth's unwavering loyalty. They were planted in the laws of the community that provided for the poor and the widow. And they were planted in the heart of a man named Boaz, a relative of Naomi's late husband, a man of integrity and kindness who would soon enter their story. Naomi saw an empty home, an empty future. God saw a field ripe for harvest. She saw the end of her story. God was just writing a new chapter. Through Ruth's faithfulness and Boaz's kindness, a plan would unfold that would not only restore Naomi's family and fortune, but would also place her directly in the lineage of the greatest king of Israel, David, and ultimately in the lineage of the Messiah. The woman who called herself bitter would one day hold her grandson in her arms, and the townswomen would say, "A son has been born to Naomi." Her emptiness would be filled, her bitterness turned to joy. This story is a powerful reminder for all of us. When we are in our Mara moments, when we feel that life has dealt us a bitter hand and we've been brought home empty, we must remember the barley harvest. We must remember that even when we can't see it, God is at work. Our brokenness does not disqualify us from His plan. In fact, it often becomes the very ground where He plants the seeds of our greatest redemption. The loyalty of a friend, a small kindness from a stranger, an unexpected opportunity. These can be the first shoots of a harvest of hope we never thought possible. Your story isn't over. Even if you feel empty today, even if your heart is heavy with bitterness, look for the signs of the barley harvest around you. God is close to the brokenhearted. He is a master of turning emptiness into abundance and bitterness into profound joy. A story of hope, kindness, and divine timing. This is the story of Ruth, a woman who stepped out in faith, not knowing her journey would change the course of history. Our story begins in a time of hardship. Naomi, a widow from Bethlehem, returns to her homeland after losing her husband and 2 sons in the foreign land of Moab. She's not alone, though. Her daughter-in-law Ruth, also a widow, makes a powerful vow to stay by her side. Ruth's words echo through the ages. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. This isn't just loyalty. It's a profound commitment, a leap of faith into a new land, a new culture, and a new life, with no guarantee of acceptance or security. Back in Bethlehem, the reality of their situation sets in. They are 2 widows with no means of support. It's the beginning of the barley harvest, a time of plenty for some, but a time of uncertainty for them. But Ruth, full of determination and a quiet strength, refuses to let despair win. She says to Naomi, "Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor." This act, called gleaning, was a provision in ancient law for the poor, the widowed, and the foreigner. It allowed them to gather the grain that was missed or intentionally left behind by the reapers. It was hard, humbling work, often done under the hot sun, but for Ruth, it was a chance to provide, a chance to survive, a chance to hope. So with Naomi's blessing, Ruth sets out. The Bible tells us something beautiful and simple. And she went. 3 small words that carry the weight of her courage. She walks into the vast fields alone, a foreigner from Moab, yet she is not truly alone. As the story unfolds, we see that an unseen hand is guiding her steps. It just so happened, the narrator tells us, that she found herself working in a field belonging to a man named Boaz. This isn't a mere coincidence. The phrase, "it just so happened," is the story's subtle way of pointing to God's providence. Ruth didn't know the owner of the field. She didn't know his reputation or his connection to her family. She simply went where she was led, and she was led to the exact right place. And who is this Boaz? He's described as a man of great wealth and standing, but more importantly, a man of character. He is a relative of Naomi's late husband, Elimelech, a detail that will become crucial later on. We get our first glimpse into his heart when he arrives at his field. His greeting to his workers isn't a command or a criticism. He says, "The Lord be with you," and they respond in kind, "The Lord bless you." This simple exchange reveals a workplace built on mutual respect and shared faith. This is the kind of man Boaz is, godly, kind, and respected. It's into this environment that Ruth has happened to wander. Boaz's eyes scan his field, and he notices her. A new face. He turns to his foreman and asks, "Whose young woman is this?" The foreman explains she is the Moabite woman who returned with Naomi. He adds that she has been working tirelessly since morning, only taking a brief rest. Her diligence and humility have already made an impression. Now imagine this scene. Boaz, the powerful landowner, could have ignored her. He could have dismissed her as just another poor gleaner, but he doesn't. He walks directly over to Ruth. He sees not just a foreigner or a widow, but a person deserving of dignity and protection. He speaks to her with incredible tenderness, calling her my daughter. He says, "Listen, don't go and glean in another field. And don't go away from here. Stay here with my female workers." This is an extraordinary offer. He is offering her his personal protection, a safe space among his own people, shielding her from the potential dangers a lone woman might face in other fields. But his kindness doesn't stop there. He tells her to follow his workers and that he has ordered the men not to bother her. Then he adds, "And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." This is more than just charity. It's radical hospitality. He's treating her not as an outsider, but as an honored guest, a member of his own household. Ruth is completely overwhelmed. She falls on her face, bowing to the ground. This isn't just a gesture of thanks. It's an act of profound humility and astonishment. She asks the question that's burning in her heart. Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner? She cannot comprehend why this important man would show such specific personal kindness to her, someone with no status, from a nation often looked down upon. And this is where we see the heart of the story. Boaz's answer reveals everything. He says, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before." Her reputation preceded her. Her quiet acts of love, her selfless sacrifice for Naomi, were not unseen. The community had been talking about this remarkable young woman from Moab. Her character, her loyalty, her kindness, these were the things that truly caught Boaz's attention. He saw her inner beauty, the strength of her commitment. Then Boaz speaks a blessing over her, and it's one of the most beautiful in all of Scripture. He says, "May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Think about that imagery. A mother bird gathering her young under her wings for safety, warmth, and protection. Boaz recognizes that Ruth has placed her trust not in circumstances or in people, but in God. She has taken refuge under the wings of the Almighty, and Boaz is praying that God will reward her for that very faith. In that moment, Boaz becomes an instrument of that blessing. He is the answer to his own prayer, providing the protection and provision he just prayed for. This story teaches us so much. It shows that our character is our greatest currency. Ruth's integrity and loving kindness were the qualities that opened the door to her blessing. It reminds us that no act of kindness, no matter how small or unseen, goes unnoticed by God. And it demonstrates the incredible power of divine providence. What looked like a random chance, ending up in Boaz's field, was a perfectly orchestrated step in God's plan. Ruth's journey from Moab to that barley field in Bethlehem is a testament to the fact that when we step out in faith even into the unknown, God is already at work, preparing the way, arranging divine appointments, and placing people in our path who will be agents of His grace. So, if you're feeling lost or uncertain today, remember Ruth. Remember her courage, her faithfulness, and her trust in a God who sees, who knows, and who can guide your steps to a field of unexpected blessing. Your story is still being written, and the God who guided Ruth is the same God who is guiding you. Thanks for joining me on this journey today. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that explores these timeless truths. If you've been following along, you know that Ruth, a Moabite widow, has made the courageous choice to stay with her mother-in-law Naomi and follow her to Bethlehem, adopting Naomi's people and her God as her own. Their situation is dire. They are two widows without a man to provide for them, in a time when that meant deep poverty and uncertainty. But Ruth is not one to sit idly by. She decides to go and glean in the fields, to gather the leftover grain that the reapers have missed, a provision made in the law for the poor and the foreigner. It's a humble, grueling task, but Ruth's love for Naomi fuels her determination. Little does she know, this simple act of survival is about to set in motion a chain of events that will change their lives forever. As the sun beat down on the fields of Bethlehem, Ruth found herself by what seemed like chance, in a field belonging to a man named Boaz. Now, Boaz was not just any landowner. He was a relative of Naomi's late husband, a man of wealth and standing in the community. As he arrived to oversee his harvest, he immediately noticed Ruth. He saw her diligence, her quiet dignity as she worked tirelessly among the sheaves. Intrigued, he asked his foreman, "Whose young woman is this?" The foreman explained she was the Moabite woman who had returned with Naomi. Boaz had already heard of her remarkable loyalty, how she had left her own land and people to care for her mother-in-law. Her reputation for kindness and self-sacrifice had preceded her. Moved by her character, Boaz approached Ruth. Instead of treating her as just another poor gleaner, he spoke to her with incredible kindness and respect. He told her, "Listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field, or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping, and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn." This was an extraordinary gesture. He was offering her protection, provision, and a place of belonging. He was treating her not as an outsider, but as one of his own. Ruth, overwhelmed by this unexpected grace, fell on her face, bowing to the ground. She asked him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" Boaz's reply reveals the depth of his character and why God had guided Ruth to his field. He told her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Boaz recognized that Ruth's actions were a reflection of her newfound faith. He saw her not just as a loyal daughter-in-law, but as someone who had sought refuge in the God of Israel. His blessing was a prayer that God would reward her trust. He then invited her to share a meal with him and his reapers, another sign of acceptance and honor. He even secretly instructed his men to pull out extra stalks of grain from their bundles and leave them for her to find, ensuring she would have more than enough. So Ruth gleaned in Boaz's field until evening. When she finished, she had gathered an entire ephah of barley, about 22 liters, a huge amount for a single day's gleaning. It was far more than she could have ever expected. Can you imagine her journey home? Her arms full, her heart likely racing with a mixture of gratitude, relief, and wonder at the day's events. She had set out that morning with nothing but hope and a willingness to work, and now she was returning with an abundance that was a clear sign of God's favor. That night, as Ruth walked through the door, her arms laden with grain, the atmosphere in their small home transformed. Naomi, who had been waiting, likely steeped in worry and the quiet grief that had become her companion, looked up. Her weary face, etched with lines of hardship and loss, suddenly softened. The sight of so much grain was astonishing. It was a tangible symbol of hope, a physical manifestation of provision in their time of desperate need. Hope, a feeling Naomi thought she might have lost forever, began to bloom once more in her heart. She looked at Ruth, then at the bounty she carried, and her first words were a blessing. "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left off his kindness to the living and the dead." And then, her curiosity piqued, she asked, "Where did you glean today, and where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." With a grateful heart, Ruth recounted the entire day. She told Naomi about the field she had happened upon, and about the kind owner who had shown her such incredible favor. "The man's name," she said, "is Boaz." At the mention of that name, everything clicked into place for Naomi. A wave of understanding and emotion washed over her. She saw not just a random act of kindness, but the careful, guiding hand of God, weaving together the threads of their lives. A smile, the first genuine smile in a long time, broke through her tears. She looked at Ruth, her eyes shining with renewed faith, and explained the significance. "The man is a close relative of ours," she said. "He is one of our kinsman redeemers." The kinsman redeemer. This was a vital concept in Israelite law and culture. A kinsman redeemer was a male relative who had the responsibility to help a family member in need. This could involve buying back land that had been sold due to poverty, or even marrying a childless widow to carry on the family name. In Boaz, Naomi saw more than just a benefactor. She saw their rescuer, their hope for the future, the one person who could restore their family's inheritance and secure their lineage. It was a moment of profound revelation. God had not forgotten them. In their darkest hour, he was working behind the scenes, turning their story from one of tragedy and loss into one of redemption and hope. As the psalmist writes, "The Lord will not forsake his people, nor abandon his inheritance." Naomi and Ruth were living proof of this promise. They were his people, his inheritance, and he was providing a path forward where they had seen only a dead end. What a beautiful picture of God's providence. Ruth's simple faithfulness in going to the field, combined with Boaz's integrity and kindness, became the very instruments God used to bring about his plan of redemption. It's a powerful reminder that our small acts of obedience and love, even when we can't see the bigger picture, are never wasted. God is always at work, orchestrating details in ways we could never imagine, turning our emptiness into abundance and our sorrow into joy. He is our ultimate kinsman redeemer. Thank you so much for joining me today to explore this incredible part of Ruth's story. It's a narrative that continues to inspire and teach us about faith, loyalty, and the unfailing kindness of God. Naomi, her heart filled with a mother's love for her devoted daughter-in-law, looked at Ruth with tender eyes. "My daughter," she began, her voice a soft, hopeful whisper, "should I not seek a home for you, a place where you can find rest and be well?" It was a question born from deep affection, a desire to see Ruth's loyalty and kindness rewarded with security and happiness. "Listen closely," Naomi continued, outlining a plan that was both bold and steeped in ancient custom. "Wash yourself and anoint yourself with fragrant oil. Put on your best clothes and then go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man, to Boaz, until he has finished his evening meal, his eating and his drinking." Naomi knew Boaz was a good man, a man of integrity and honor. Her plan was not one of manipulation, but of trust in tradition and in Boaz's character. She instructed Ruth, "When he lies down to sleep, take note of the place where he rests. Then go quietly, uncover the space at his feet, and lie down there. He will then tell you what you should do." This act was a symbolic request for protection and marriage, a plea to a kinsman redeemer to fulfill his duty. Ruth, whose heart was a testament to loyalty, listened to every word. She looked at the older woman who had become her mother in every way that mattered, and replied with simple, unwavering devotion, "All that you say to me, I will do." There was no hesitation, no doubt in her voice, only trust in Naomi's wisdom and a quiet faith in the path being laid before her. And so, with her heart steady, she went down to the threshing floor and did exactly as her mother-in-law had instructed her. The harvest was a time of celebration and gratitude. The air at the threshing floor was thick with the scent of grain and the tired but joyful energy of the workers. Boaz, a generous and respected landowner, presided over the culmination of the harvest. After he had eaten and drunk, his heart was cheerful from the successful season and the blessings of the Lord. He found a comfortable spot at the end of the heap of grain, a common practice for guarding the precious harvest through the night, and lay down to sleep. The world quieted, the moon casting a silver glow over the peaceful scene. It was then that Ruth moved from the shadows, where she had been waiting patiently. She approached him softly, her footsteps barely disturbing the scattered chaff on the ground. Just as Naomi had told her, she quietly uncovered the space at his feet and lay down, her body curled in a posture of humility and hope, entrusting her future to God and to the honor of this man. The night deepened. Around midnight, a sudden chill, or perhaps an unconscious stirring in his sleep, caused Boaz to be startled. He turned over and became aware of a presence at his feet. In the dim light, he could make out a figure. A jolt of surprise ran through him. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low but alert, cutting through the silence of the night. From the foot of his resting place, a voice, soft but clear, replied, "I am Ruth, your servant." She then made her humble but powerful plea, an appeal that would change both of their lives forever. "Spread your wing, your cloak over your servant, for you are a redeemer." She was asking for more than just warmth from the night air. She was asking for the protection of his name, the shelter of marriage, the fulfillment of the sacred responsibility he held as a close relative. It was an act of incredible bravery and profound trust. Boaz was deeply moved. He saw not a forward woman, but a virtuous one, acting in faith and in accordance with the traditions of their people. His voice, when he spoke, was gentle, filled with a sudden, warm affection. "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter," he said, his tone reassuring. He understood the significance of her request and the purity of her heart. He saw her loyalty, not just to Naomi, but to the family and the lineage she had chosen to join. "You have shown more kindness in the end than at the beginning," Boaz continued, his admiration clear in his voice, "for you have not pursued the younger men, whether poor or rich." He recognized that she could have easily sought a husband for mere passion or youthful attraction. Instead, she had chosen the path of duty, honor, and legacy. She had chosen to preserve the name of her deceased husband, Mahlon, by seeking a redeemer within the family line. Her action was one of selfless love, a testament to her noble character that had already become well known throughout the town of Bethlehem. "And now, my daughter, do not be afraid," Boaz said, his words a comforting balm. He wanted to immediately put her mind at ease, to assure her that her vulnerability would be honored and her trust would not be misplaced. "I will do for you all that you ask, for all the people of my town, all my fellow citizens, know that you are a virtuous woman." Her reputation had preceded her, her hard work in the fields, her unwavering devotion to Naomi, and her quiet dignity had not gone unnoticed. She was respected, admired, and seen as a woman of noble character. Boaz, ever the man of integrity, then explained a complication, a small detail of the law that needed to be addressed. "It is true that I am a near kinsman, a redeemer," he affirmed. "However, there is a redeemer who is a closer relative than I am." He was bound by honor and by the law to give this other man the first opportunity to fulfill the role. He would not take shortcuts or act out of turn, even when his own heart was clearly stirred. His commitment was to doing things the right and honorable way, before God and before the community. His integrity was as strong as his kindness. So Ruth waited, wrapped in the quiet stillness of the night, now covered by the corner of his garment, a silent promise of his protection. She lay there, not in fear, but in a state of humble, patient trust. Her part was done. She had acted in faith, she had been brave, and she had placed her future in the hands of a good man, and ultimately in the hands of God. In that quiet moment at the threshing floor, she embodied the very essence of faith, a profound and trusting belief that God's promises would be fulfilled, that his plan for her life was one of redemption and blessing. Her story became a timeless echo of how loyalty, courage, and faith can pave the way for a future beyond all imagining. Thank you so much for watching this story of incredible faith and devotion. If the story of Ruth and Boaz has touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Well, imagine being in a situation where everything feels lost, and then a ray of hope appears in the most unexpected way. That's exactly what happened in the Book of Ruth. We pick up the story right at the city gate, a bustling place back then, where important matters were settled. Boaz, a man of integrity and character, heads there with a clear purpose. He needed to resolve a crucial issue concerning Naomi's land and her family's legacy. He spots the nearer kinsman, the one who, by law, had the first right and responsibility to help Naomi. Boaz, ever respectful of tradition, lays out the situation, presenting him with the opportunity to redeem the land and protect Naomi's future. But here's where it gets interesting. The kinsman, after thinking about it, says something quite unexpected. He says, "I cannot redeem it, lest I impair my own inheritance." Think about that for a moment. He was looking at his own bottom line, his own legacy, and decided that taking on Naomi's land and the responsibility of Ruth would somehow complicate or diminish what he already had. It's a classic example of letting fear or self-interest get in the way of a higher calling or a greater blessing. Sometimes we too can be so focused on what we might lose that we miss out on what we could gain. But this isn't where the story ends. This is where Boaz steps up in a big way. He understands the profound implications, not just for the land, but for Naomi's lineage and Ruth's future. So before all the elders and the people gathered at the gate, Boaz makes a bold declaration. He says, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and to Mahlon from the hand of Naomi." He's not just buying land, he's restoring a legacy. He's bringing hope back to a family. And then he makes an even more profound statement that echoes through the ages. He says, "And more than that, I have acquired Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers and from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day." Wow! Talk about stepping into destiny. Boaz wasn't just fulfilling a legal obligation, he was embracing a divine calling. He saw beyond the immediate circumstances and recognized the opportunity to bless, to restore, and to build. His act of redemption was not just about property, it was about people. It was about showing extraordinary kindness and faith, and the response from the crowd, it was beautiful. All the people and the elders at the gate said, "May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel." They were invoking a powerful blessing, wishing for Ruth to be fruitful and to contribute to the growth and prosperity of God's people. They recognized the significance of this union. This story beautifully illustrates a principle that we find in Proverbs 10:22. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Think about Boaz. He wasn't focused on what he might lose or what discomfort he might face. He acted with generosity, with faith, and with a heart to bless. And what was the result? He received an incredible blessing. Not just a wife, but a key role in the lineage of King David and ultimately in the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. His act of kindness brought an immeasurable blessing, far beyond what he could have imagined, and it was certainly without sorrow. This isn't just a historical anecdote, it's a living truth for us today. When we choose generosity, when we choose to step out in faith, and when we choose to bless others, we open ourselves up to the Lord's blessings. These blessings aren't always material wealth, but they are always rich, in purpose, in joy, in peace, and in the deep satisfaction of living a life aligned with goodness. The blessing of the Lord truly enriches us in ways that money cannot buy. and it leaves no bitter aftertaste. So as you go about your week, I encourage you to reflect on this. Where can you be a Boaz in someone's life? What act of kindness, big or small, can you perform? How can you step out in faith even when it seems like it might impair your own inheritance? Remember, God's economy is different from ours. When we sow seeds of goodness, compassion, and faith, we often reap a harvest of blessings far greater than we could ever anticipate. Have you ever felt like your story was over? Like all the good chapters had been written, and all that was left was a bleak, empty epilogue? If you've ever felt lost, overlooked, or that your past mistakes have disqualified you from a better future, then the story of Ruth is for you. It's a story that reminds us that even in our darkest moments, God is weaving a masterpiece of redemption. Let's journey back in time to a small town called Bethlehem. We meet a woman named Naomi, whose life has been shattered by loss. Famine drove her and her family from their home, and in a foreign land she buried her husband and both of her sons. All she had left were her 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. Overwhelmed by grief, Naomi decided to return to her homeland, urging the young women to go back to their own families, to find new husbands and new lives. She felt that her story was finished, that God's hand was against her. She even told the people of Bethlehem, "Don't call me Naomi," which means pleasant. She said, "Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." Orpah, with tears, kissed her mother-in-law goodbye and returned to her people. But Ruth clung to Naomi, and in one of the most beautiful declarations of loyalty ever recorded, she said, "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried." Think about that for a moment. Ruth, a woman from Moab, a nation often at odds with Israel, chose to leave everything she knew behind: her home, her family, her culture, her gods. She chose to tie her fate to a grieving, destitute widow and an unknown future in a foreign land. Why? Because she had seen something in Naomi, and in Naomi's God that was worth everything. This wasn't just loyalty, it was a profound act of faith. She was stepping out of the familiar and into the unknown, trusting that this new path, this new God, held a promise she couldn't yet see. So the 2 women, a bitter widow and a foreign stranger, arrive in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. They have nothing, no husband, no sons, no land, no income. Their situation was as desperate as it gets in the ancient world, but this is where the story pivots. It's in our nothingness that God often does his greatest work. Ruth, showing incredible humility and a strong work ethic, tells Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him, in whose sight I shall find favor." Gleaning was a provision in the law of Moses for the poor. It allowed them to follow the harvesters and pick up the grain that was left behind. It was hard, back-breaking work, often looked down upon, but Ruth wasn't too proud. She was willing to do whatever it took to provide for Naomi. And notice her words, "In whose sight I shall find favor." She went out with a heart of hope, trusting that someone would show her kindness. As divine providence would have it, the field she happened to end up in belonged to a man named Boaz. The Bible tells us he was a worthy man, a man of wealth and good character, and importantly, a relative of Naomi's late husband. Boaz arrives at his field and immediately notices this new woman working diligently. He asks his foreman, "Whose young woman is this?" He learns her story, that she is the Moabite who came back with Naomi, a testament to her loyalty and character that had already spread throughout the town. Boaz, moved by her story and her dedication, approaches Ruth directly. He doesn't just allow her to glean, he offers her protection, provision, and dignity. He tells her to stay in his fields, to drink the water his men have drawn, and even instructs his workers to leave extra grain for her on purpose. He sees her not as a poor foreigner, but as a woman of noble character. He tells her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Boaz recognized that Ruth had taken a massive leap of faith. She had sought refuge under the wings of the God of Israel, and Boaz became the human instrument of that divine protection. This isn't just a romance story. It's a picture of God's grace. We, like Ruth, come to God with nothing, having left our old lives behind. And He, like Boaz, doesn't just tolerate us. He welcomes us, provides for us, and covers us with His grace and protection. When Ruth returns to Naomi that evening with a huge amount of grain, Naomi is stunned. "Where did you glean today?" she asks. When Ruth tells her it was in the field of Boaz, a flicker of hope is reignited in Naomi's heart for the first time in years. She exclaims, "May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or the dead." Naomi realizes that Boaz is one of their kinsman redeemers. A kinsman redeemer was a male relative who had the responsibility to care for a family member in need. This could involve buying back land that had been sold or marrying a childless widow to carry on the family name. Suddenly, Naomi sees a path forward. She sees God's hand moving, turning her bitterness into a blueprint for restoration. She guides Ruth, telling her how to approach Boaz at the threshing floor, a bold and culturally significant act to appeal to him as her redeemer. Following Naomi's instructions, Ruth goes to Boaz at night and humbly asks him to "spread your wing over your servant, for you are a redeemer." She is asking for his protection, for him to fulfill his role and redeem her and Naomi's family line. Boaz is deeply moved by her integrity. He could have been her father, but she wasn't seeking a young, handsome man. She was seeking to honor her family obligations and secure a future for Naomi. He agrees to redeem her, but there's a complication. Another relative is closer in line than he is. What follows is a masterclass in integrity. Boaz doesn't try to go behind the other man's back. The next day, he goes to the city gate, the public place for legal matters, and presents the case before the elders. He offers the other kinsman the chance to redeem Naomi's land. The man initially agrees, but when Boaz adds that redeeming the land also means marrying Ruth the Moabite to carry on her dead husband's name, the man backs out. He is unwilling to risk his own inheritance. And so, with the legal path cleared, Boaz stands before the town elders and declares, "Blessed, retel, you are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech. Also, Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon, I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance. You are witnesses this day." This brings us to the beautiful conclusion of our story. Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. The Lord blessed their union, and she gave birth to a son. The emptiness in Naomi's life was now filled with the laughter of a child. The women of the town who once heard Naomi's bitter cry now rejoiced with her, saying, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer, and may his name be renowned in Israel." They held the baby and called him Obed. But the story doesn't end there. The final verses of the book trace a lineage that changes the course of history. Obed became the father of Jesse, and Jesse became the father of David, Israel's greatest king. From Ruth, a foreign widow from an enemy nation, an outsider with a broken past, came the royal line of David. And through the line of David, God fulfilled his ultimate promise. Centuries later, another child would be born in that very same town of Bethlehem. This child was Jesus Christ, our ultimate kinsman redeemer. Just as Boaz paid a price to redeem Ruth and restore her family, Jesus paid the ultimate price to redeem all of humanity. He left his home in glory, came to us in our brokenness, and bought us back from sin and death, not with silver or gold, but with his own life. The story of Ruth is our story. It's a powerful reminder that no one is too far gone. Your past doesn't define your future. Your mistakes don't disqualify you from God's grace. Like Ruth, you may feel like an outsider, like you have nothing to offer. But when you place your trust in God, when you take refuge under His wings, today we're diving deep into a story that whispers of quiet miracles and profound transformations, a tale from ancient times that still resonates with us today. Get ready to be inspired by the incredible journey of Ruth. You know, sometimes life throws us curveballs, big, unexpected ones, that leave us feeling lost and overwhelmed. But what if I told you that even in our deepest sorrows, God is still planting seeds of redemption, seeds that can blossom into something beautiful beyond our wildest dreams? That's exactly what we see in the story of Ruth. Imagine this. A devastating famine forces a family from Bethlehem to move to Moab, a foreign land. Naomi, her husband Elimelech, and their 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, sought refuge there. Life was tough, but they adapted. The sons eventually married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. For 10 years they lived this new life. But then, tragedy struck. First, Naomi's husband passed away, and then, heartbreakingly, both her sons also died, leaving Naomi, Orpah and Ruth as 3 widows in a foreign land, with no provision, no protection, and no future as they knew it. Can you feel the weight of that loss? The sheer despair? Naomi, utterly heartbroken and feeling abandoned by God, decided to return to her homeland, Bethlehem, hearing that the famine had ended. She urged her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, to return to their own families in Moab. It was the sensible thing to do. Orpah, after much tears and reluctance, finally agreed, heading back to her people. But Ruth made a different choice, a choice that would echo through history. Think about the courage it took for Ruth. She was choosing uncertainty over comfort, a foreign land over her familiar home, and unwavering loyalty to her mother-in-law over the chance of a new life for herself in Moab. Naomi pleaded with her, saying, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Go back with her." But Ruth's response is one of the most beautiful declarations of loyalty and faith you'll ever hear. She said, "Do not urge me to leave you or to turn back from following you. For wherever you go, I will go, and wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts you and me." Wow. Just pause for a moment and consider that level of commitment. Ruth, a Moabite woman, was pledging her life, her identity, and her future to Naomi, a grieving, bitter woman who felt God's hand was against her. This wasn't just loyalty, it was a profound act of love and a budding faith in Naomi's God. She wasn't just following Naomi, she was embracing a new way of life, a new belief system, and stepping into the unknown with nothing but her devotion. So Naomi and Ruth arrive in Bethlehem, and their return doesn't go unnoticed. The whole town was stirred, saying, "Is this Naomi?" And Naomi, still reeling from her grief, told them, "Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara. For the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." Mara means bitter. She truly felt that God had turned his back on her. But even in this bitter beginning, God's quiet miracles were already at work. To survive, Ruth went out to glean in the fields, picking up leftover grain after the reapers. This was a humble, difficult, and often dangerous job for a foreign woman. By divine orchestration, she happened to glean in the field belonging to a man named Boaz. And who was Boaz? He was a wealthy, respected kinsman of Elimelech, Naomi's late husband. Now, Boaz was a man of integrity and kindness. When he saw Ruth, he was immediately impressed by her diligence, and the story of her unwavering devotion to Naomi had already reached his ears. He instructed his workers to treat her kindly, to even purposefully leave extra grain for her. He offered her protection and provision, something she desperately needed. This wasn't just random luck. This was God's hand guiding Ruth to precisely the right field, to precisely the right person. Naomi, upon hearing of Boaz's kindness, saw a glimmer of hope. She realized that Boaz was not only a kinsman, but also a kinsman redeemer, someone who had the right and the responsibility to marry Ruth and restore the family line and property. This was a beautiful tradition designed to protect vulnerable widows and families. Naomi, now seeing God's faithfulness, devised a plan, a bold one, for Ruth to approach Boaz and appeal to him as her kinsman redeemer. Ruth, with trust and obedience, followed Naomi's instructions. She went to Boaz at the threshing floor, uncovered his feet, and lay down, an act symbolizing her request for protection and marriage. Boaz, recognizing her virtuous character and the profound significance of her request, readily agreed to fulfill the role of kinsman redeemer. He admired her for not pursuing younger men, but for seeking to preserve her deceased husband's name through the ancient custom. However, there was one obstacle. A closer kinsman had the first right to redeem. Boaz, being a man of honor, addressed this publicly at the city gate, involving the elders as witnesses. When the closer kinsman declined the responsibility because it might endanger his own inheritance, Boaz gladly stepped forward. He declared his intention to acquire the property and, more importantly, to marry Ruth the Moabite, to perpetuate the name of the deceased upon his inheritance. And so, Ruth and Boaz were married. From this union a son was born, whom they named Obed, and the women of Bethlehem rejoiced with Naomi, saying, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a kinsman redeemer. May he be to you a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age." They celebrated Ruth, saying she was better to Naomi than 7 sons. But the story doesn't end there, because Obed became the father of Jesse, and Jesse became the father of David. Yes, that King David. And from the line of David came Jesus, the Messiah. Think about that for a moment. A Moabite woman, an outsider, through her loyalty, love, and faith in God, became a direct ancestor of Jesus Christ. From the fields of sorrow, from a place of utter despair, God planted seeds of redemption that blossomed into the most incredible lineage in history. This story beautifully illustrates Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. Ruth didn't understand the full picture. She just acted in faith and loyalty. Naomi, bitter and broken, eventually saw God's faithfulness unfold in ways she never could have imagined. Their journey reminds us that God works in mysterious ways, often through quiet, ordinary acts of kindness, loyalty, and faith. So what can we take from Ruth's story? First, loyalty opens doors to destiny. Ruth's unwavering commitment to Naomi, even when it wasn't easy or convenient, paved the way for her incredible future. Second, love overcomes loss. The love between Ruth and Naomi, and later the love of Boaz, brought healing and restoration to a situation riddled with tragedy. And third, faith in God turns strangers into mothers of kings. Ruth, an outsider, was embraced and elevated because of her faith and character. God uses ordinary people in extraordinary ways when they trust Him. Even when our fields seem barren, when we're facing loss or uncertainty, remember that God is still at work. He's planting seeds of hope, redemption, and purpose. Our job is to trust Him, to lean into His plan, and to act with loyalty, love, and faith, just like Ruth. What part of Ruth's story resonates most with you? Let me know in the comments below. If this message encouraged you, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more uplifting content. Your support means the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.